Yeah. It's so good to see my sister from another mister. Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit. Taste the honey sauce. Taste the goodness of the biscuit with the honey sauce. Don't get your honey sauce on me. I don't like the way it mixes with my mac and cheese. Look at that stupid song stuck in my head. Oh my gosh. It's so catchy. Taste the biscuit. Taste the goodness of the biscuit. Taste the butter spread. Taste the goodness of the biscuit with the butter spread. Oh my goodness. Hello, everybody. We are live. Welcome to the Sabby and Jaybe show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. I am one of your hosts, James Fauntleroy. So good to see you. Sabby Sabs. Good to see you, sis.
What's going on, JB?
All right. How you doing today? You look good.
Oh, thanks. I've been really busy, man. So if I look good, that's great because I don't know.
Yeah.
I was struggling earlier.
Yeah, it's all good. So, just to let you guys know, the Sabby and JB show is every single Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also see Sabby Sabs later this evening on her channel, correct?
That's right.
All right. And then you can also find me on Sundays at 1 p.m. here on RBN. And you can find me on my channel on Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on my channel called JB Font. Now, if you have not already, go ahead and give a like to the stream. This helps us out with the algorithm so that we can reach more people and talk to you. So we appreciate that very much. Also, if you guys have not already, did you guys know that we also have a mailing list just in case you guys don't feel like doing the whole YouTube algorithm and notification thing? You guys can go to revolutionaryblackout.substack.com so you guys can get those email notifications. And for serious inquiries only, if you would like to get in touch with us, you can get in touch with us at revolutionaryblackout@outlook.com. If you have any stories, some encouraging words, any thoughts about organizing that you guys would like to submit to us, go ahead and do that and reach out to us there. We really appreciate it. Now, just to let you guys know, take the poll. Now, if you have not got to watch the town hall, then you guys can reserve your grade for later. But I have a poll there that asks about your grade for Kamala Harris's performance for the town hall. You have A, B, C, D, E, F. I'm sorry, A, B, C, D, F. So 4 grades there. Okay. If you have already watched it, then go ahead and give your grade already from what you thought. But we're going to be breaking stuff down and we're going to be talking about that. And you can grade based off of what we bring up as well. So we'll be doing a lot of debunking. But before we do that, just wanted to say just a hello to a few people. But I'm going to make it kind of quick because there's a lot to get to. Okay. So good to see everybody in the chat. Dana Fairbanks says, I didn't watch it. Well, you saved yourself.
You're going to see it.
Ashura says, Joel, good to see you. SCH says, hola. Ciao. We have Radical Education says, taste the biscuit. Absolutely.
Taste the
Make sure there's cheddar bay. Make sure the biscuit is cheddar bay. Sorry.
Where's the Philly?
Christian 999. Hey, remember when Herman Cain said that 999? Yep. Remember that?
Yep. Didn't he want to do like a flat tax of like 9%? Something like that. Mm-hmm. It was like a flat rate tax or something. Yeah.
Yeah, it was weird. So thank you, says JB Dancing. Yep. Be dancing. And yes, please like the video. Interesting. Stella Assange criticizes BRICS. That's interesting.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Didn't know that either. All right. Let me see. Oh yeah, you do have a clean setup. I like it.
Oh, thank you. My sister did help me out with all this. This is all her.
Your sister loves you. All right. Jay says, "What's up, family? Good to see you, fam." All right. Bryce Smith coming up saying, "What up, Sabby and Jay? Sup, y'all?" Bryce, good to see you. Zoe says, "Is that a real plant behind you, James?" Yes, this is actually real.
I was wondering that too, honestly, JB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my plants are real. One of them died.
Oh,
I know. I'm mad about it. But then this one is not doing as good as I would like for it to. Some of the leaves are turning brown, but I'm trying to keep it watered. It's just not doing as well as I want. The one right here on this side is actually doing pretty good.
probably
And
because
there's
it's
new
closer
growth.
to the window. Probably because it's closer to the window.
Yeah, probably. Part of me thinks that I should take this and move it closer to the window, but then it won't be on the screen. So
I got an orchid because it requires very little water and just once a week. And I was like, you know what? I can do that.
I need to do something like that too.
Yeah, like this is an orchid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. They were actually pretty cheap. They sell them at the grocery store all the time, but it requires very little water and once a week.
Nice. I'm gonna look into I wanted some more greenery, I'll look into that more. All right. So Among Friends says we're okay now after saying that we had a lag. So I'm glad. All right. Johnny Davis says, both of you, that's dope. Yep, absolutely. Janice Anderson says, I didn't watch it, still graded her an F because she is a terrible in every interview. Always sounds drunk off her ass and entitled. Plus, her voice is really, really annoying. It triggers misophonia. Misophonia? I never heard of that before. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not.
Interesting. PC said, I don't watch propaganda. Oh, Lord. I love y'all. Kate says, hey, guys. Good to see you, Kate. And Top Hero says, Kamala wins the race to the bottom. Yep. Unfortunately, that's the way it is. We're going to do one more. John H. says, two more. John H. says, was this worse than the free and equal third party debate?
I'm covering that tonight.
Some
of the talent, like some of the musicians, I was like, what is this?
Oh.
Yeah.
And KMH says that was an awful performance. Oh, I got to do this one. Be Easy, that dude says, what's up, fam? Nazima, Skin, Sabby, and Jovial Jaybe. Yo, I got to give my homeboy his flowers, because when he said your setup looks like a Nazima commercial, I thought.
I was surprised when he said that. I was like, really?
Yep, and you got the clear skin to match too. I can just see Sabby just taking water and splashing on her face in slow motion.
Oh man.
Anywho, so let's get into this subject. What are we going to be talking about tonight with everybody? Well, you guys actually saw from the thumbnail. We're going to be talking about Kamala. Cackling Kamala has a town hall, and we are reacting to it. It's going to be very interesting because there's a lot of what she was discussing as far as her different policy positions. And I'm going to be real with you. This was basically just I'm not Donald Trump. And I got sick and tired of her trifling behind. But there's one thing that I definitely want to show really quick first. Because this was something that I wanted to share. Actually, you know what? I'll share that in a little bit. Let's get first to this. So we're going to talk about basically blueberry flavored fascism. And that's basically what Kamala Harris is presenting to us. So I have a lot of receipts today. So I'm getting into my savvy mode with receipts. So
buckle up for this one, guys.
Yeah, buckle up. Buckle up, Buttercup. All right, we're going to start at 128. So just want to make sure we skip all the other stuff.
In just a second, I want to start by asking you, though, for weeks you have been calling Donald Trump unstable, unhinged. You've called him dangerous. You've quoted General Milley recently, who called him a fascist. Today, you quoted General Kelly, who said that Trump repeatedly praised Hitler. Yeah. But there are tens of millions of Americans right now who have heard all those things, and they don't buy it, or even if they do, they're still going to vote for Donald Trump. He's arguably more popular now than ever. You have 13 days to go. What do you say to those voters to convince them? Because some of them are in this room.
Sure. And I thank you all for taking the time to be here. And you could be doing a number of other things with your time. So this really is proof that we love our country. People are engaged, Anderson, and really want to talk about the issues. And so the issue that you raise, yes, I do believe that Donald Trump is unstable, increasingly unstable, and unfit to serve. And I don't necessarily think that everyone has heard what you and I have heard repeatedly, which is the people who know Donald Trump best, the people who worked with him in the White House, in the Situation Room, in the Oval Office, all Republicans, by the way, who served in his administration, his former chief of staff, his national security advisor, former secretaries of defense, and his vice president have all called him unfit and dangerous. They have said explicitly he has contempt for the Constitution of the United States. They have said he should never again serve as president of the United States. We know that is why Mike Pence is not running with him again, why the job was empty. And then today we learned that John Kelly, a 4-star Marine general, who was his longest serving chief of staff, gave an interview recently in the last 2 weeks of this election, talking about how dangerous Donald Trump is. And I think one has to think about, why would someone who served with him, who is not political, a 4-star Marine general, why is he telling the American people now? And frankly, I think of it as he's just putting out a 911 call to the American people. Understand what could happen if Donald Trump were back in the White House. And this time, we must take very seriously those folks who knew him best and who were career people are not going to be there to hold him back. At least before, there were folks who we know what he would say, but they would restrain him. Imagine now Donald Trump in the Oval Office, in the Situation Room. He who has openly admired dictators, said he would be a dictator on day one. The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff has said he is a fascist to the core. So,
a fascist that they actually helped out.
I just wanted to say, don't get it twisted, people, because the Biden-Harris administration has been fascist too. And they've done it with free speech. They've done it with censorship. They've done it with cracking down on, socialists, as we've seen, right, with the Huru 3. The Twitter files have also shown us that the Biden-Harris administration, how they have been censoring people on social media platforms. They're fascists too. It's just a different type of it. So you don't have to be a dictator in order to be fascist. And that's something we really got to get across to people.
Yeah, I remember, and this is one of the reasons why I said that it was a blueberry flavored fascist, basically meaning it's your flavor of fascism that you're willing to accept. People like Kamala Harris really just have a different flavor of fascism that makes you think that, oh, well, if you're just willing to accept these couple of things, if you're willing to accept that I can suspend the rights for certain people just so that you can maintain your rights, then that's your acceptable version of fascism. And my thing is, it's like, look, we should not accept any fascism at all, not at the cost of lives of other people. The problem is that Kamala Harris is saying, well, I'll give you fascism for in exchange for a woman's, body autonomy. I'm giving you fascism in exchange for if you're LGBTQ, love is love. I'm giving you fascism in exchange for all these different things that you say that you love, but at the same time, it comes at a price, a very high price. And the thing is like and it's the same thing with Donald Trump. Donald Trump is saying the exact same thing. I will give you fascism in exchange for not being woke. I'm giving you fascism in exchange for, building the wall, or I'm giving you fascism in exchange for, quote unquote, cutting your taxes. So they both basically are juggling the same balls, and they're both pointing at each other saying that one person's fascist. That's what it looks like to me.
Don't mention the ballot access part as well, because remember, the Democratic Party, you guys, has been the one that have been removing people like Jill Stein and Cornel West and Claudia De La Cruz off of the ballot. The Republican Party hasn't removed Chase Oliver, the Libertarian candidate, off of the ballot. That's why he has the most ballot access. However, when it was showing that RFK Jr. Seemed to be pulling some type of support from Donald Trump, Donald Trump reached out to RFK Jr. and said, hey, let's work together on this. Kamala Harris reached out to Cornel West, and Cornel West was like, well, no, I'm not dropping out. But that's not who's pulling, you know what I mean? Like that's not her competition at this point in time when it comes to third party independence. It's really Jill Stein, because Jill Stein has the most Muslim voter support in most of those swing states last I saw. So did Kamala Harris's team reach out to Jill Stein and say, hey, let's try to work together on this? No, they just kept removing her off the ballot. Now, luckily, she was able to stay on the ballot in most places, but that is also fascism when they're sitting up there telling you who you have to vote for, and they're removing other options so that you don't, vote for someone else. Like, it's almost like they're forcing you to select them. So there's different elements to this. And I think that, I don't know. I just think that people need to focus on the actions and not the rhetoric, because like removing people off the ballot, like that's not cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now I want to play this clip really quick here. This is not the town hall, but I want to play this to set up everything so that everybody knows and keeps this in their mind what Kamala Harris said and what she's saying just a couple of weeks ago versus what she's saying today. So let me share my screen. This was her a few days ago on The View. I want you guys to pay attention to what she says.
We are very happy to see you here.
Thank
today.
you. Thank you.
for coming.
Wait, what in the world is going on with that quality? Sorry.
As Vice President, you've worked very closely with President Biden for almost 4 years. He was here on our show, and he said there wasn't a single thing that he did that you could not do.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different people, and we have a lot of shared life experiences. For example, the way we feel about our family and our parents and so on, but we're also different people, and I will bring those sensibilities to how I lead. For example, I know we're going to talk today, but one of the issues that I'm very focused on is what we do around home health care.
Yes.
I have done a lot of work as it relates to, sadly, but violence against women and children. I care a lot about that. I love our small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me predominantly, but we had what we called a second mother who lived 2 houses down, who helped my mother raise us. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. And so the influence of a personal experience will have its impact on the presidency.
Well,
did she answer the question, Sabs?
No. No, and I just, this is a big problem that Kamala Harris has. And if anybody watched the full town hall last night, you'll notice this as well. She has a problem just answering the question. And for people who are voters that are kind of on the fence and they haven't decided who they're going to vote for yet, that's a problem for them. And I know because they've told me in person, like that is a problem because it makes it look like she's unsure or she's uncertain and that she doesn't really have a plan.
Okay, so she's going to directly answer the question. I want you guys to keep that in mind, okay? Now, Sunny has to ask her a second time. And this is her people. This is her base.
Right.
If anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
She's been part of most of the decisions that have had an impact. I want you guys to remember that part.
She told on herself with that one.
Mm-hmm.
The work that we have done, for example, capping the cost of insulin at $35 a month for our seniors is something I care deeply about allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices and bring the cost of prescription medication down for seniors. But my intention is to expand that for all Americans. The work we have done to invest in American industries, whether it be in terms of manufacturing and creating almost 800,000 new jobs around manufacturing. Those were all a shared priority.
Well, let's.
So I wanted to give you guys, and I let it keep playing because I wanted you guys to get the full context of what she said. Now let's get back to this. I want to go into part 2 because now we're going to get into things like grocery prices, which I think is going to be interesting because we all got to eat. And so I would like to get into this as well. So let me share my screen and let's get into this. So, and Kamala Harris does something really egregious here that just really just grinds my gears.
Let me introduce you to Eric Swenson. He runs a service desk for an IT company in Conshohocken, Pennsylvania. He's registered as a libertarian, describes himself as an independent. He says he's undecided. Eric?
Thank you, Anderson. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you, Eric.
So my question is concerning groceries. Grocery prices have gone up in the last 4 years. And some people blame former President Trump. Some people blame President Biden. Who would you say is correct? And what would you do to bring prices down for Americans?
Thank you, Eric. And you're absolutely right. You know it. I know it. I think most Americans know it. Price of groceries is still too high. And we need to address it in a number of ways. One of my aspects of doing what we need to do to bring down the cost of living for working people and the middle class in America is to address the issue of grocery prices. Part of my background and how I come to it is probably a new approach grounded in a lot of my experiences as a former attorney general, where I took on price gouging. And part of my plan is to create a new approach that is the first time that we will have a national ban on price gouging, which is companies taking advantage of the desperation and need of the American consumer and jacking up prices without any consequence or accountability. So that is one way. But to your point, Eric, there are a number of issues that we need to address in terms of bringing down the cost of living. It includes what we need is a new approach that I bring to the issue of affordable housing, including, for example, rent. And again, I bring to it my experience, knowing what has been happening in terms of how corporations have been buying up blocks of property to diminish competition, and then rents get jacked up, and addressing that, both in terms of making sure that there is a consequence and accountability for that, but also investing in people's dreams of home ownership, knowing that for too long, frankly, both administrations and both parties, Democrats and Republicans, haven't done enough to deal with the issue of housing. And we need.
Hang on, let me ask you something, Sabs. let me ask you something, because Kamala seems to be dragging on and on. Given Kamala's history, does she ever have a history of living paycheck to paycheck? Because she comes from a very educated mother and father. She comes from a middle class household, okay? And so with that being said, she doesn't seem like the type of person that ever had to live paycheck to paycheck. Even in going to school, if she did have a job, did she struggle to make sure that her rent was paid, right? Did she ever have to deal with that at all? And I'm not saying that you have to deal with it in order to know how bad it is, but it seems like she's very out of touch, because when people talk about, oh, we just need affordable housing, it's like, affordable for whom?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think she started to go off on a tangent again there, because wasn't the question, who do you blame? I thought that's what he was asking her, like,
Yeah,
who do you blame
for the
and,
food costs?
yeah, about the groceries. And so she started talking about, the price gouging and stuff like that, which I get that, but I think the question was, who do you blame? Then she goes off onto a tangent about housing, and then she says, both administrations haven't done enough. So that right there is kind of, and this is where I think she kind of, exposed herself a little bit when she said both administrations haven't done enough for housing, because she is still a part of that administration. So she's admitting that both her and Biden, along with the Trump administration, haven't done enough when it comes to housing for people. So again, I just
I have a question. If Joe Biden is doing a lot of things that are similar to Trump, especially on things like the border, as well as with Israel and many other things, if he's governing similarly to Trump, in taxes, and then Kamala Harris says she wouldn't do anything differently than Joe Biden, then does that mean that she won't do anything differently than Donald Trump?
That's what I'm saying. And I mean, like see, JB, this is why, didn't we say that this was the danger about Democrat leadership selecting Kamala Harris and not having an open primary, a real open primary with debate? Didn't we say this was the danger? Because everything that people are upset with Biden about is connected to her too, because she exposed herself there on The View when she said, I was a part of the decision-making process. So that right there lets you know that she agreed with what Biden was doing. She said she agreed with what he did and she wouldn't do anything differently. So this was the mistake of selecting Kamala Harris, because she's a part of the current administration. So that the response to that question, here's what she should have done. Mm-hmm. If you're running against Donald Trump and people are talking to you about, the prices and stuff like that, if you feel that, both administrations haven't done enough for housing and yada, yada, that kind of thing, I think where she missed the plot was that to respond to that question, you still have to answer who is responsible, the Biden administration or the Trump administration. What she should have done is she could have talked about the economic issues that were under Donald Trump, which ultimately was part of the reason that led to him not being reelected. Because see, people forget, we go back to 2020. Remember during the pandemic when some of the states were locked down and people lost their jobs and a lot of small businesses here in Boston closed after those lockdowns because they couldn't afford. How you operate if you're not working? So you can't pay the property taxes, like the taxes and stuff for the property or anything like that. These people weren't making any money. And by the time those PPE loans came around, it was a little too late because some of those businesses already had to fold. So if she was thinking, she would have brought up, let's compare to 2020. I understand there's issues with the grocery prices, but I think, we also have to remember what we came into, what was happening during 2020 under Donald Trump with the economy, with the lockdowns, et cetera. She didn't even use that to her advantage. I don't understand that. They already know the questions. I'm going to say this again. They already know the questions, guys. These people aren't picked randomly in the audience. The people were already selected with their questions prior to attending the event.
Mm-hmm. So let's continue.
Need a new approach that includes working with the private sector. I say that as a devout public servant. working with the private sector to cut through the red tape, working with home builders, working with developers to create tax incentives so that we can create more housing supply and bring down the price.
Let me just ask you about price gouging. I looked at your plan.
I just want to say again, none of that matters if people can't afford to buy food. None of that matters. You building homes doesn't change anything if people aren't making a living wage, or if the wages that they're making don't matter because everything else is increasing. So what has happened over the years is that wages have not adjusted for inflation. That is part of the reason why we got here.
Yep, absolutely. Kamala.
And you talk about going after price gougers, and I'm quoting from the plan, on essential goods during emergencies or times of crisis. I get that. How does that help, though, someone like Eric with prices that for years, the grocery price has just been high?
Well, first of all, Anderson.
See, did everybody hear that? See, that part is important because that's a piece that she is leaving out, which is a part of her platform, right? Anderson Cooper just let you know that when she talks about the price gouging and stuff like that, apparently she's referring to essential goods. What are essential goods? Whatever they determine to be essential. So that part right there, that kind of put her on Front Street, because the reality is, if you've been going around this country telling people that you're going to cut the prices of the groceries, but now Anderson Cooper just let everybody know during that town hall that you're just going to cut the prices when it comes to essential goods. What are the essential goods?
Yeah. And ultimately, this only covers for emergency situations. So therefore, if you're going to only stop price gouging during emergency situations, that means you're going to allow price gouging for just a normal everyday situation.
That part too. So you see, and this is one of those things, and I don't know if Kamala Harris even realized it at that point in time. I don't know if her campaign realized this. I don't know who's prepping her, who's advising her. But the reality is, like, this was not a Fox News town hall. This was a CNN town hall. They're on her side. And it took Anderson Cooper to expose, well, wait a minute, your policy says you're only going to cut prices for essential goods in emergency situations. Well, what determines if we have an emergency situation? Does that mean it would have to be another pandemic in order for that to happen? Does that mean that if you have a hurricane that's coming to your area, that happens, but only to your particular area? What qualifies as an emergency situation? So you see, she got exposed here.
Yep, absolutely. Let's see how she combats this.
As you know, and obviously CNN has been covering extensively what has been happening in the state of Georgia, North Carolina, Florida. It's a real issue. I was Attorney General of California. I was the top law enforcement officer of the biggest state in the country. I took this issue on because it affects a lot of people. And I'm not going to apologize for the fact that we need to actually deal with accountability when these, not all, in fact, most don't, but when companies are taking advantage of the desperation and the need of the American people. We saw it actually during the pandemic as well, where because of supply chain issues, there was a reduction of supply, and then they would inflate the price of everyday necessities. Not to mention, by the way, again, Donald Trump should be here tonight to talk with you and answer your questions. He's not. He refused to come.
But you're there, Kamala.
Yeah, this doesn't matter. I'm sorry. This doesn't matter. Like I'm sorry, but when somebody's asking you about your plan to deal with the grocery prices, for you to add in, well, Donald Trump is supposed to be here and he's not here. How did that work out for the GOP primary candidates that were running against Donald Trump on the debate stage whenever they brought that up? How did that work out for Chris Christie? You see, he not standing here. How did that work out for Nikki Haley? You see, she not standing there. Actually, now she's standing right next to Trump because she's going to help his campaign. So bringing up the fact that he's not there, that's obvious. We know he's not there, but that's not the focus at that point in time. The question is directed, what will you do? What will you do? So it almost kind of seemed like she kind of had this attitude of, well, you guys are grilling me about what I will do. Donald Trump's not even here answering these questions. That's what it almost kind of felt like.
Yeah. Sabby ain't never told a lie.
But understand that part of his plan is to put in place a national sales tax of at least 20% on everyday goods and necessities. And that, by economist estimates, independent economists, would cost you as the American consumer and taxpayer an additional $4,000 a year.
I want you to.
Let's talk about the national sales tax real quick. Let's talk about this tariffs that Donald Trump is going to be putting on Americans. That's going to be a tax. I agree. It will definitely be a tax because you as a consumer are going to have to pay it. It's not going to be these companies outside of the United States, like for instance in China, that are going to be paying it. They're going to just pass that on to the consumer, right? We agree on that, right, Sabs?
Right.
Okay.
But they did a fact check on her, by the way. So can I just read the response to the fact check about what she said about that? So CNN did this fact check. Harris on Trump's tariff plan. So she said a national sales tax of at least 20% on everyday goods and necessities. Okay, that's what she said Trump's plan was. Facts first. The claim is reasonable enough, but it's worth explaining that Harris is referring to Trump's proposal to implement new tariffs. So this isn't the same thing. The 20%, this CNN, they check. I can share my screen if you want. They checked this themselves. Hold on. It says, let me share real quick so people can see. Because I was like, I don't think that's what he said about this. All right, here we go right here. Again, this is the fact check. Trump repeatedly said he plans to impose an across the board tariff of either 10% or 20% on every import coming into the U.S., as well as a tariff upward of 60% on all Chinese imports. What Kamala Harris said is that he's going to place a national sales tax on at least 20% of everyday goods. So this isn't the same thing. There's a number of them here that they fact check, by the way.
Well, the thing is that the tariff is a type of tax, and so that will get passed on to the consumer. But that tariff is really just a type of tax that actually pushes, because Professor Richard Wolff actually talked about this, that it forces the consumer to not buy anything that comes from a particular country outside the United States. Right. So it kind of discourages them from doing so. But it's still, in a sense, essentially is a tax on those particular goods and services that will be put on. With that being said, sorry, go ahead.
It's not like, I just want to say this so people don't get confused. It's not like you're going to go to the store and you're going to buy like body wash and it's the 20% tax added onto that.
Yeah, unless it comes from a particular country, right?
Right.
Yeah. But one of the things that I want to point out too is while Kamala Harris may be demonizing Trump about this, she also needs to demonize her boss. Because this is out of the White House. President Biden takes action to protect American workers and businesses from China unfair trade practices. And so he is also proposing tariffs on things like steel and aluminum, right? He's presenting tariffs on semiconductors. This one says tariff semiconductors will increase from 25% to 50% by 2035. So that, I guess, anything that has a semiconductor in it, you're going to be paying 25 to 50% more when it comes to that cost. Also, EVs, electric vehicles, from 25% to 100%. So guess what? You're going to have to do that. Batteries, battery components, battery parts, and critical materials. You're going to be paying more for that.
And they're trying to, but you said EVs. Remember, they're trying to push you to buy electric vehicles. Yeah,
but those EVs, the electric vehicles you're trying to push you to buy are only American. If you want to get, for instance, a Chinese EV, instead of paying $50,000 for a Chinese EV, you'll be paying $100,000 because it will be a 100% tariff. So you're basically going to end up paying 100% on top of what you're already paying. And so that's the tax that Biden is also putting on American consumers, but Kamala Harris doesn't want you to know that. So my point is, remember what I said when I showed in the outset. Kamala Harris said that nothing basically will change or be different from her and Biden. Therefore, Biden is literally doing a tariff, which is a type of tax on American consumers as well. That being said, she can complain about Donald Trump all she wants about him giving a national tax. Well, guess what? By her same logic, Joe Biden's doing the exact same thing.
Yep.
And, you know,
most Americans aren't going to know this because they don't have the time to look up the information. Like, that's the thing. They don't have the time to look up the information, but you're right, JB.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And so, and also look, medical products. See, from 0% to 50%. PPE, personal protective equipment, from 0 to 75% to 25%, from 7.5% to 25%. Look, and how many of us need these things who are either disabled or who are, you know, medically needy? You know, so Kamala can't say anything because the thing is, like, every single time she says, "Oh, we're going to do this," guess, or Donald Trump's doing this or that, guess what? Joe Biden's also doing the same thing.
But
Donald
see,
Trump's already doing the same thing.
This is what happens when you go with the person that was closer to being a Republican. When the party rallies behind the person that was closer to being a Republican instead of the person that was not. This is what happened because the Democratic Party decided to rally around Joe Biden, even though Bernie Sanders was way ahead of, you remember all this, you know, way ahead of him in popularity and support and all that kind of stuff. This is what happens. This is what they want. Remember what they wanted. They said they wanted someone who was going to be a moderate. They wanted someone that can work across the aisle. How'd that work out during Biden's term, by the way? That's what they wanted. So this is what they got.
So let's go to 556 and let's continue.
Require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House.
Hang on. I think I went back a little bit.
It's crazy too. Like, even CNN is saying she didn't do a good job. Like, I don't know if you saw the reports, JB.
I didn't get to. I was just focused on this, but I believe it. All right, let's go.
Including the issue of immigration, which we've got to fix.
Let me ask you, you've talked about codifying Roe v. Wade. That would obviously require 60 votes in the Senate, a majority of the House. That's a big leap. We don't have that yet. If that's not possible to codify it in the House, what do you do?
I think we need to take a look at the filibuster, to be honest with you. But the reality of it is this.
Okay, she said, take a look at the filibuster, right? I hope you guys know where I'm going with this.
Uh-oh.
The big uh-oh. Well, look at here. Let me share this with you guys. CBS News says Biden says eliminating the filibuster would throw the entire Congress into chaos. This came out in 2021. Shall we read it a little bit? Yes, we shall. It says President Biden essentially rejected the idea of eliminating the filibuster, asserting that doing so would throw the entire Congress into chaos and nothing would get done. He was in Cincinnati Town Hall Wednesday night, and his desire to preserve the filibuster with some reforms came despite prodding from CNN host Don Lemon, former host, about the role of the filibuster in stalling civil rights legislation amid clear support among audience for eliminating it. So, with that being said, her boss is also against ending the filibuster. What did Kamala say to Sunny Hostin on The View? She said nothing would really be different between her and Joe Biden. I believe her that right there. I actually believe her. Here on this town hall, I don't believe her.
She said she wouldn't do anything differently. And that's another point right there, JB, go to show you when it comes to Roe v. Wade, when people are like, oh, they couldn't just fix it overnight. Remember when I interviewed Ro Khanna, that was what, 2 years ago? Ro Khanna told me what Obama could have done was to end the filibuster, and that would have protected women's reproductive rights nationally. Ro Khanna was the one that let that slip out. So the thing is, when Kamala Harris sat up there and said she wouldn't do anything differently, apparently she wouldn't have done that differently either. If they would have ended the filibuster, like I said, but then they wouldn't have a lot much to run on. See, this is what I'm trying, what JB and I are trying to get across to you guys. They always held this, the abortion card in their back pocket. They've always had that. So just waiting to pull that card out and play whenever the hands got too tight. So if they were sitting around at a table and they were playing a card game and it looks like it's getting tight, they might lose. Let me pull out that abortion card and let me play that, put that in my hand. So that way that can pretty much help me get a win. They had plenty of times. Shama Sawant shared the article earlier on Twitter today. They had over 50 years to codify Roe v. Wade. Over 50 years.
Mm-hmm. We're going to get into that in a little bit more as well. Let's continue.
Let's talk about how we got here. When Donald Trump was president, he hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. And they did as he intended. And now in 20 states, we have Trump abortion bans that include punishing healthcare providers, doctors and nurses. In Texas, do you know they provide for prison for life? For a healthcare provider for doing the job that they believe is in the best interest of their patient? Laws, Trump abortion bans, some that make no exception even for rape or incest. One of the areas I specialized in as a prosecutor was crimes against women and children, and have died because of these laws. And the suffering, I have to say, Anderson, traveling, for example, I was with Liz Cheney this week. She unapologetically.
Go ahead.
The Liz Cheney part. It's like, why would you bring her up in this context? Like, why would you mention? I mean, come on. Why would you? Last time I checked, Liz Cheney is still a Republican. Yes. Why would you bring her up in this context? Why?
She's trying to make it seem like, oh, the Republicans, they're reasonable if they're against Trump, even though they agree with Trump on 99% of everything that he agrees on. Especially
when it comes to abortion. And a lot of people will tell, and this is the thing too, when it comes to this, even some of the conservatives that say, they're not in favor of a national abortion ban, a lot of them will tell you it should be left up to the states. Which is essentially what Trump did.
Yeah. Boy. I got something for her though. Let's let her wrap this up.
Pro-life. And will also tell you that she doesn't agree with what's been happening. I find that many people I've met who are pro-life have said to me, I didn't intend that this would happen. I didn't intend that women who are suffering a miscarriage would develop sepsis, as has happened many times. I didn't intend that women would die. I didn't intend that there would now be restrictions on access to in vitro fertilization. I didn't intend that there would be an effort to limit access to contraception. So, this is probably.
So she said they didn't intend. Okay. With that being said. Did Obama not intend for this to happen either when he said this back 12 years ago?
The Freedom of Choice Act is not my highest legislative priority. I believe that women should have the right to choose, but I think that the most important thing we can do to tamp down some of the anger surrounding this issue is to focus on those areas that we can agree on. And that's where I'm going to focus.
I want you guys to see something. Look at this subheading. It says first 100 days news conference. This was back in 2009. Barack Obama had the White House, the executive branch. He had a majority in the House, and he had a super majority filibuster-proof Senate, and he did not do it. He did not do it. He had it in the bag. That was a layup, and he never took the shot when he had it. And so you're telling me that, oh my God, Donald Trump is doing all this thing. Barack Obama set it up for Donald Trump. He set it up.
Yep.
And so now you're going to look at us and go, oh my God, the woman's right to choose is on the line. Barack Obama left it on the line, baby. Joe Biden left it on the line. You think that Kamala Harris is going to continue that? She's going to continue to just leave it on the line? You damn Skippy.
There's a lot of things too. I think people just, some people may be too young to remember, or they just may have forgotten. But Barack Obama was also against gay marriage. A lot of people don't talk about that. They don't mention it today, but we remember, don't we, JB? We're old enough to remember. So this is why we got Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. Oh, while we're talking about that, Kamala Harris does not have a very savory relationship with trans people either. Just ask her about how she treated trans inmates while they were in prison as she was AG. So for anybody who's coming to me as a gay man and going, oh, but what about our rights as gay people? Look, they're going to dangle that carrot and say, well, love is love, right? But at the same time, when it comes to love is love, they will never, ever, ever truly help you when it comes to your health care as somebody that may be LGBTQ. They will never actually look, we want to make housing for all, right? What about all those young people who are gay, trans, bi, who are out on the streets, who are homeless right now?
Yeah.
Many of whom who are Black, right? Who are out in the streets that are homeless, and yet they don't want to do an actual housing for all initiative. They just want to make it more affordable. Well, meanwhile, you got all these homeless teens that are LGBTQ that are out there in the streets. So miss me with that. On top of the fact that healthcare, look, you got things like HIV medication, you got PrEP, you have things like HRT for people who are trans, and yet the Biden administration does not want to give us healthcare for everybody. Neither does Kamala Harris. She flip-flop on Medicare for all. So miss me with that. When it comes to actually the tangibles for LGBTQ people, just like the tangibles for Black people, right? They're not about it. They just want to pander to us. They want to pander to Black people. They want to pander to Arabs. They want to pander to Muslim people. They want to pander to people who are immigrants. They want to pander to women. They want to pander to gays. They want to pander to men. They want to pander to everybody, but they don't want to actually do the actual tangibles that will actually benefit all of us.
This is true. Again, like I said, Barack Obama gave us Donald Trump because Barack Obama ran on his presidential platform at that time was actually inspirational. And people were excited to vote for Barack Obama. And he also ran on a couple of populist ideas. Remember this, JB? Like the healthcare. Remember, he was like, everybody needs to have healthcare. Yes, we can. It's time for a change. And then when he got in there, he ended up operating like a moderate Republican. And that's how we got Donald Trump. And even if you guys notice, if you look at 2012, when Barack Obama was running for re-election, you'll notice he lost some of those states that he won in 2008. I believe one of them that he lost, I remember correctly, was Florida. because he won Florida in 2008, lost it in 2012. He also lost North Carolina. And then you'll have to remind me, I can't remember if he lost Ohio or Indiana. It was one of them that he lost. So again, though the signs were early, like, yeah, he won re-election, but the signs were early on during his presidential term where people started to see, wait a minute, this guy was all talk. Because explain to me, listen, no Democrat has won Florida since. Not saying Joe Biden was able to win Georgia narrowly against Donald Trump, but no Democrat has won Florida since. They haven't won Ohio since. So the writing is on North Carolina. The writing's on the wall, people. The change happened during him.
Yep, absolutely. Let's go into part 3. And there's something I want to point out here because Kamala Harris literally just steps in it.
Considering you have been in the position of vice president for the past 4 years under the Biden administration, how can we expect you to deviate from the direction of that administration compared to your own? How can we differentiate your policy and your beliefs from that of Biden's?
That's a great question, and thank you. Well, first of all, my administration will not be a continuation of the Biden administration.
Lie! Liar! Wait a minute, hold up. What did we just see when Sunny Hostin asked her the exact same question 2 weeks ago? She said, would you do anything different than Joe Biden? She said no. Now she's talking to this young lady and going, well, it would definitely be different than Joe Biden's presidency. Which one is it, Miss Harris? Counselor, you seem to be contradicting yourself.
I want to correct myself too. He did hold on to Florida. Sorry. Barack Obama did hold on to Florida, but he lost this stupid thing doesn't. I accidentally went to Google Lens. He lost Ohio. He lost North Carolina. No, sorry. He lost Indiana. So I was right about Indiana. He lost Indiana. He lost North Carolina. So he was not able to get those during re-election. He held on to Ohio, but then the Dems haven't won Ohio since because Hillary Clinton didn't win Ohio. So, and Ohio's been red since then. And yeah, so nobody's won. A Democrat hasn't won North Carolina since 2008.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. But yeah, so as far as, Kamala Harris, she lied to Sunny Hostin. Either she lied to Sunny Hostin or she's lying to this young lady. She's lying to one of them. All right, let's continue.
Bring to this role my own ideas and my own experience. I represent a new generation of leadership on a number of issues, and
a new generation of leadership with a lot of old ideas.
Believe that we have to actually take new approaches. For example, what we talked about in terms of housing. My experience that leads to that priority includes what I did to take on the big banks around the foreclosure crisis. When you
took on, quote unquote, took on Steve Mnuchin. Are we going to talk about that, Ms. Harris? She took on Steve Mnuchin, who actually was illegally foreclosing on people. And when Steve Mnuchin actually offered her money and gave her campaign donations, she didn't go after him?
Nope, she sure didn't.
Oh, my goodness.
I brought billions of dollars to homeowners that were the subject of predatory lending. I know what homeownership means to the American people, not to mention what it meant to my mother, who worked very hard and saved up so that by the time I was a teenager, she was able to buy our first home. I bring to it my experience actually taking care of my mother when she was sick, and it was, as it turned out, dying from cancer. And so I know what it means and have the experience of taking care of an elderly relative, and I have raised children. And so I bring to my priorities and will, as president, a new approach and a new idea, frankly, about what we need to do to deal with the sandwich generation. which is what we call those folks who are literally in the middle, who are raising their young children and taking care of their parents, which is why my plan and approach says, hey, you shouldn't have to wipe out all your savings to qualify for Medicaid, to be able to get support to hire somebody to help you cook for your parent or help them put on a sweater. I've done that. I know.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I got to interject right here. What Kamala Harris is leaving out about her mom is that her mother came from a higher caste system in India. Her mother did not come here poor. Her mother already had the money to come here when she came here. This is what people have to understand. So when Kamala Harris says, I grew up in a middle class household, remember, she was mainly raised by her mother because her parents divorced, I think, when she was 5, and she's the oldest. So she was mainly raised by her mother. So Kamala Harris is telling you that her mother, who had 2 kids, who was a single mother, was middle class. Does everybody understand that? She already came from a higher caste system when she came here. That's important. People understand. It's like the Vivek Ramaswamy who sits up there and says like his parents came here with nothing. That's bullshit. They came from a higher caste system in India and they came here with degrees. You got to remember when Kamala Harris' mom came here, she came here to enroll in a PhD program. They were in Berkeley. So her mother was a professor. Her father was a professor at Stanford University. He was a Marxist economist. So this whole thing, like, I know what it's like, and they saved up and da-da-da. Again, it's easier to do that when you already come from a family that already got some money. That's important for people to know. A lot of people don't talk about that, but yeah, the caste system is real. Shama Sawan will tell you about that. So her mom did not come here broke.
Yeah, and just for a lot of people, the immigration system makes it so that if you do not have a college degree or if you are not in some higher ed program, then the likelihood of you being approved for immigrating here is a lot less because they basically have a classist type of system for people who want to immigrate here. Also, you have to put in a lot of money in order to come here in the first place. So the people who come here legally typically are the people who got money already, and they typically already also have more right-wing views by the time they get here too. But a lot of people don't want to talk about that. Let's continue.
What that requires. You shouldn't have to quit your job in order to do the work that is necessary to take care of your children and your parent, because it's overwhelming to try to do it all. And so my plan is to have and allow Medicare to cover the cost of home health care for our seniors. These are a couple of examples, including what we talked about in terms of price gouging. And what we need to do in addition, and it's a new approach that I think is well overdue, let's invest in the small businesses of America.
Wait. We were talking about Medicare and then we went to small business. Wait, did I miss something?
This is a problem that she has. She goes off on these tangents, whereas and the Medicare thing, as I said before, I feel like they are running around in circles instead of just walking a straight line. I feel like if we were on a field and there was a track, right? Like a racetrack, like you're about to run or whatever, right? I feel like if I said, I'm going to meet you on the other side of the track, I feel like Kamala Harris's campaign is running around the track instead of cutting through the middle, walking a straight line through the field and meeting me on the other side. So with the example of the Medicare, all of this could be fixed under universal health care program. All this, let me try to get Medicare to cut back insulin prices. And let me try to get Medicare to help with home health care. Let me try to, it just don't make no sense. And in all this different red tape that's around it, like the reduction of the insulin prices, get it, got it, good. That only applied to people who were seniors on Medicare. What about everybody else that's diabetic? It's not just something that just seniors. And some people are born diabetic.
Yeah.
So it just, to me, it just didn't make no sense. Like, you guys are just, They're putting Band-Aids on wounds instead of trying to heal the wound, JB.
Exactly. Remember that part in I think it was Men in Black 2, where they're trying to figure out, they're in the pizza shop and they're trying to figure out exactly where the keys are to the locker, and Will Smith's going through all this. He's like, oh, well, the Statue of Liberty is pointing at this, and then this is a pizza, this is an arrow, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, by the time he looks, Agent K is literally just dangling the keys. And he's like, I hope I didn't make this too hard for you. Because the thing is, they're going around the world just across the street. Don't make no sense.
The woman who helped raise us was a small business owner. I know who small business owners are. I know what they do. They are the backbone of America's economy. And for too long, we've overlooked their value to the economy as a whole, much less to the economy of neighborhoods and communities. So that's why my plan, and it's a new approach, is about tax cuts for our small business.
She sounded like who?
These aren't even her plan. I'm sorry to tell everybody, but a lot of this stuff isn't even her plans. A lot of these were things that Joe Biden already had as a part of his platform when he was still in the race. Even the housing credit, a lot of the stuff that Kamala Harris is taking credit for, these were already a part of Joe Biden's platform before he dropped out of the race. And what Kamala Harris's campaign did is they changed some of the numbers, right? But this is what I'm trying to tell you guys. This woman has she's not ready. She's not ready. And JB, I'm going to tell you, if she wins, people are going to see it. It's going to be embarrassing.
Very, very embarrassing. I'm going to skip past the rest of this and go straight into immigration.
Uh-oh.
Because this lady, she rambles. This didn't even have to be that long. This could have been a half an hour. She turned this thing into 90 minutes. Goodness gracious, she's long-winded.
This is a student at Drexel University from Flourtown, Pennsylvania, registered Republican, says he's leaning toward voting for you, but has yet to make a final decision. Jackson.
Thank you, Anderson.
Hey, Jackson.
Thank you for taking the time to be here too, Vice President
You too.
Harris.
Thank you.
Regarding the rapid increase in the migrant population, how will you ensure that every immigrant is integrated into American society safely? What benefits and subsidies will you provide them with? And how long will these benefits and subsidies last for an individual? Most importantly, will the American citizens' taxes pay for these benefits and subsidies? And if so, how much money will be allocated?
Uh-oh.
Well, thank you, Jackson. Let's start with this. America's immigration system is broken and it needs to be.
Okay, first of all, she said the immigration system is broken, right? I'm going to say this, and I have a little bit of a note written down here, and I just want to put this out here right now, because a lot of times people who are like, oh my God, the immigration system is broken. The system is broken. The immigration system is working exactly as it's designed. It's designed to pit workers against one another. It's designed to give undocumented immigrants more crumbs than citizens, to build resentment towards each other. This just shows that the ruling class knows what they're doing, and that we can undo the destabilization that the U.S. government caused to make this system this way and take care of its own citizens. In the end, the issue is capitalism and exploitation. Isn't Harris just running on the same policy as Trump? How is addressing the symptom but not the underlying cause helping? It's not broken. It's designed this way.
Same with the criminal justice system. It's working exactly how they intended to work.
Yep. That's and everybody's like, oh my God, they're giving them so much resources. Aren't they giving them a whole lot? It's really just crumbs that they're giving them. And then it's like, hey, look, they're giving these undocumented immigrants these crumbs. How do you feel? Man, I wish I had more crumbs. And then next thing you know, it's like, well, they could have gave us more. The problem is that they're purposefully doing that just so that it pisses you off, so that you guys stay divided, when in reality, all we could have did was just stop destabilizing their homes so they won't have to leave in the first place. And then on top of that, they also can actually give you more. They just don't want to.
Yep. Yeah, that's another thing I was going to mention too. The resources that they're giving to the migrants, that doesn't prevent them from giving you more. That's the thing people need to understand. Even if we did not even if we didn't have that situation, they still wouldn't give you more.
Yeah, it's divide and conquer, man. It's divide and conquer.
Fixed, and it's been broken for a long time. And part of what we need to do is always prioritize what we need to do to strengthen our border. I will tell you, I'm the only person in this race among the two choices that voters have. I've personally prosecuted transnational criminal organizations in the trafficking of guns, drugs, and human beings. I have spent a significant part of my career making sure that our border is secure and that we do not allow criminals in, and we don't allow that kind of trafficking to happen and come into our country.
I want to share something really quick. She's like criminals, and in your mind, I got a question. What does the criminal actually look like in your head? Did they look like somebody who's maybe a few shades lighter than me, got certain phenotype features?
Uh-oh. JB, we lost you. Oh no. I don't know what happened. I'm sorry. We lost JB. He'll come back. He must have here we go. Yeah. He must have hit a little snag. There you go.
I don't know what happened, but you NSA. Anyways, so do they have some type of phenotypic features or whatever? Well, let's take a look at this. Let me show you. Let me show you somebody who's somebody that they would actually go against, right? Let me show this. So, California Police Union Executive Director ran fentanyl operation from home. Oh my goodness. Look at this. It's a white woman that's doing the fentanyl operations in California. So, if you want to talk about the fentanyl and all this stuff that's coming across our border, then maybe, just maybe, you need to go after some of these citizens that are actually doing it instead of the undocumented immigrants who largely actually are the ones that are actually doing this.
And that's the case for like the thing is, I think some people may not be aware of is like that's not uncommon. That's not. Yeah. Didn't you guys learn from Breaking Bad? Like it's just yeah, it's not uncommon. A lot of times it's US citizens who are doing the operations.
Yeah,
it just I mean, and you've seen there's a number of videos that we've seen too where they were paying Border Patrol members to let the drugs come in. Yeah. To let it come in. So again, this is why I'm just like, and remember, Kamala Harris was assigned to the border. That was her assignment as vice president. So, I mean, what do you mean what you gonna do when you could have been doing it all this time?
Yeah. And this her name is Joanne Marion Segovia. You can't get more white than that. She worked for the San Jose Police Officers Association since 2003 and was charged on Wednesday with attempting to unlawfully import a synthetic opioid called Varial fentanyl. She's facing 20 years in the Fed. So is that who Kamala is talking about? Let me go back. Because this is the issue, right? Because the problem is that, like we said, it's the system that's the problem. No amount of tweaking will ever truly actually make it work for everybody. You got to change the system fundamentally.
And as my opponent has proven himself, He would prefer to run on the problem instead of fix the problem. You may know there were some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress working with others that came up with a border security bill that would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border. Those border agents are overwhelmed. They need the support. They need the backup. It would have allowed us to have more resources to stem the flow of fentanyl. I don't need to tell this state and people around the country what is happening in terms of the scourge of fentanyl and how it is literally killing Americans.
By Americans.
Yeah, it's Americans running those operations. Like it just literally, same thing with meth.
Oh my goodness. My.
It would have put resources into stemming the flow. It would have given more resources to prosecute, to investigate and prosecute transnational criminal organizations. It would have done a lot of good. Donald Trump got wind of the bill and told them, don't put it forward. He killed the bill because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. We have to have a secure border and...
Thank you.
Same thing you doing. Same thing you doing when it comes to abortion. The same thing the Democratic Party's been doing. Both parties been running on a problem. Both parties been doing that. That's how you continue to get people to come out and vote for you. So but none of that explains why she didn't do anything prior to that bill. Remember the interview she had with Lester Holt, and he said, "Have you been to the border?" "I have not been to the border." Hello.
Amen.
To have a secure border, and we have to have a comprehensive pathway for citizenship. And that includes requiring people, hardworking people, to earn citizenship and do it in a comprehensive, humane, and orderly manner.
Let me ask you about that. I mean, you talk about the bill that Donald Trump quashed, that was in 2024. You talk about the bill he tried to get passed in 2021. That wasn't able to get passed. 2022, 2023, there were record border crossings. Your administration took hundreds of executive actions. It didn't stem the flow. Numbers kept going up. Finally, in 2024, just in June, 3 weeks before the first presidential debate with Joe Biden, you institute executive actions that had a dramatic impact, really shut down people crossing over. Why didn't your administration do that in 2022, 2023?
First of all, you're exactly right, Anderson. And as of today, we have cut the flow of immigration by over half. In fact, the numbers I saw most recently, illegal immigration.
But if it was that easy with that executive action, why not do it in 2022, 2023?
Because we were working with Congress and hoping that actually we could have a long-term fix to the problem instead of a short-term fix.
You couldn't have done one and both at the same time?
Well, here's the thing.
Flag on the play. Flag on the play. She let the cat out the bag. She let the cat out the bag because we were working with Congress. So you know what that means, don't you? You know what that means? Okay. The first 2 years that they were in office, they had a Democrat House. Am I wrong or am I right? They had a Democrat House.
Nancy Pelosi was the speaker.
Would have passed in the House just with the Democrats alone. Just with the Democrats alone. Because they had the majority. Now we moved to the Senate. And they had the back and forth with Joe Manchin, Kyrsten Sinema, Why would Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema vote against the border protection? Kyrsten Sinema is from Arizona. She lived on a border state. There's a lot of people in her state complain about issues with the border. Joe Manchin all over the damn place. But at best, maybe there could have been a tie in the Senate, right? And then the vice president is the tiebreaker.
Because she's the president of the Senate.
Thank you. So once again, they think we stupid. This don't make no sense. What did we say at the very beginning of Joe Biden's presidency? They're going to try to not do these things during the first 2 years. They're going to wait until the Republicans take over the House, which, did happen in 2022. And then they're going to say they couldn't get it passed because the Republicans had the House. This is an old trick. We've been watching them do this over and over again. But what that there tells you is also working with Congress. Kamala Harris is spending more time focusing on policies that she knows she cannot pass by executive order. She's focusing on policies that have to get through Congress. What is Kamala Harris trying to do by executive order? Besides the marijuana thing, besides legalized marijuana. You see the problem? That's one of the differences I noticed too, because Jill Stein was able to explain to people in interviews what she would do by executive order. So all these promises, I just want to wake people up. A lot of these promises that Kamala Harris is making to you is not going to get done without Congress. And right now, based on the numbers in the Senate, the Republicans have the majority in the Senate. They have 50. There's 5 seats that are open. So at best, they could hope for a tie. But if Republicans gain back the Senate, she ain't getting this stuff passed. And that's the reality. And I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but this is why I think as a presidential candidate, it's important to talk about what you can do by executive order.
Yep. Also, just to add to your point regarding executive orders, a lot of times the Democrat will avoid doing executive orders going, oh, I don't want to be a dictator, blah, 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 even though the executive orders and things that they should be doing are actually popular with the people, in fact. But they'll be like, oh, I don't want to do this. But then they won't say a word, or they'll wave their fist at the Republican that gets in office because he starts doing a whole million of executive orders that actually pass through that moves the country even further towards fascism.
This is why, like, honestly, like maybe we can do a segment about this one day, JB, because people really have to understand civics and understand like who controls legislation, right? Like, what does the executive branch do? What does the legislative branch do? What does the judicial branch do? Because I see people, this is why I hate when people get so excited and like, oh, she's going to do all these things. Not without Congress. No. And that's why it's rather disheartening when people don't pay attention to local races. Yeah. Because ideally, like, that could be the person that holds up legislation or approves legislation, to be honest with you.
Yep, absolutely. And I got something to add in here in a second. Ooh, it's not going to look good for her.
We have to understand that ultimately this problem is going to be fixed through congressional action. Congress has the authority and the purse. I hate to use DC terms, but literally they write the checks. Part of the issue is in order to really fix the problem at the border. I was just at the border recently talking with border agents. You know what they talk about? Yes, they are overwhelmed. They're working around the clock. And the other thing that they talk to me about, we need more judges down there to deal with asylum claims. We need more personnel down there to deal with processing. But
why do we have so many people seeking asylum? Why would they need asylum, Sabs?
They're not just overwhelmed because you don't have enough border agents on the border. They're overwhelmed because more people are coming to the border because you're killing their country. That's why. That's why. Talk to people who are from Venezuela. They'll tell you what's happening. They'll tell you what the U.S. has done to their country and to their people. There's a reason why. They're like, oh, there's an influx at the border. But you don't say why they're coming here. You don't say it. And that's really important. So you can put more border agents on the border, but that doesn't change the amount of people coming to the border because you have ruined their countries. It's just over. And then not just obviously this administration, all these administrations. You got to remember Trump implemented coups in Venezuela.
Yeah.
And another thing I want to mention to people too, that I think sometimes people get wrong. Everyone keeps saying, oh, they're all coming from Venezuela. They're all Venezuela. No, some of the people that are coming from Venezuela are from other countries in South America who left their country that the U.S. was destroying and sought refuge in Venezuela. And then Venezuela gets destroyed. And now they're trying to move. Mm-hmm. This is what I was saying before about migration. People are more likely, and this is another thing people got to understand, people are more likely to seek refuge closer to home first.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. So Let me continue here.
Anderson, and that's where Congress kicks in terms of dedicating the resources to actually fixing the problem. We have dealt with it such that, to your point, we now, as of today, as of our visit, have lower undocumented immigrants and illegal immigration than Trump when he left office.
That's true.
But we need a permanent solution, and that requires bipartisan work.
Do you wish you'd done those executive orders in 2022, 2023?
I think we did the right thing, but the best thing that can happen for the American people is that we have bipartisan work happening, and I pledge to you that I will work across the aisle to fix this long-standing problem. I think the American people are demanding it.
No, and this is her being stubborn. No, you did not do the right thing. That's why people keep bringing this issue up. That's why, this is why mayors from different cities, I know Mayor Wu has complained to the Biden administration about this. Mayor Adams complained to the Biden administration about it, and publicly multiple times, that they needed help. So no, you did not do the right thing. Take the L, hon. Take the L.
Yep. She could just end the sanctions and that would help out a lot.
You got sanctions on all these damn countries. And by the way, they have no problem letting certain people in at all. Certain people, they say you can just walk right on in. So Israelis. And it's what I said to people too. And I said, a lot of people pointing to, what's happening right now in the Middle East with the genocide and stuff like that. We're talking about more displacement, more displacement. So this continues.
Yep. You're going to have more Israelis. We have a whole bunch of Ukrainians, people from Belarus coming in. Everybody wants to talk about the black and brown immigrants, but they don't never want to talk about the undocumented white ones.
No, not to mention Hampton University was allowing Ukrainian refugees in the U.S. to attend there for free. Now that's a HBCU. They're not letting the black kids go there for free. It's stuff like that. So no, you did not do the right thing. Jesus Christ. Child.
Yeah.
On both sides of the aisle. And it's time we actually put the partisan approach to this aside. We know what can work.
Well, let's talk about this compromise bill that you want to pass if you're elected. You said that's going to be a priority. It includes $650 million in funding for the border wall. That's something Republicans wanted. That was part of the compromise. Under Donald Trump, you criticized the wall more than 50 times. You called it stupid, useless, and a medieval vanity project. Is a border wall stupid?
Well, let's talk about Donald Trump and that border wall. So remember, Donald Trump said Mexico would pay for it? Come on, they didn't. How much of that wall did he build? I think the last number I saw is about 2%. And then when it came time for him to do a photo op, you know where he did it? In the part of the wall that President Obama built.
But you're
Wait a minute. Wait, Mr. Postman. Hang on. Obama built the part. Hold up. That's the motherfucking D.R.E. Snoop Dogg. Hang on. So, let me shut up.
I don't know if she had a drink before this town hall. If she didn't, maybe she should have had something. I don't know. But that obviously was not something she was supposed to mention.
Hang on. Let me share this. Y'all watching? Wait up. Wait. The Biden administration says it's using executive power to allow border wall construction in Texas. This came out on last year on October 5th. So it says the Biden administration announced that they waived 26 federal laws in South Texas to allow border wall construction on Wednesday, marking the administration's first use of sweeping executive power to pave the way for building more border barriers, a tactic often used during the Trump presidency. My question is, when Kamala Harris said she would not be that much different than Biden, and Trump and Biden are doing these same things, then what makes that different between her and Donald Trump? Are you listening?
I just remember the Democratic Party being heavily against the wall. All of them, Pelosi, AOC, all of them. And, you know, the kids in the cages and all that kind of stuff. And we talked about the kids in the cages back then. But when people would bring up, well, Obama built those cages and yada, yada, people say that's not true. It's false. That's misinformation, like all that kind of stuff. And now you got Kamala Harris. So Anderson Cooper, again, was just kind of like, but now you're okay with the wall. If this doesn't show you guys the problem with partisan politics, this is what happens with the parties. That's what I was saying before. If it would have happened, let's say Trump was never president. And let's say it was Kamala who was running after Barack Obama. And she said, I propose a border wall. The Democrats would have been all for it because that's their party. So what this tells you is that the Democratic Party is not anti-border wall. They were never really truly against it. They just didn't want it because Trump wanted to do it.
Yep.
Obama built a wall.
They all building walls instead of building bridges. You know, so my biggest question is, if Kamala is for the same wall that the Democrats were vehemently against in 2016, then the shift to the right continues. It just like Diddy said, can't stop, won't stop. He won't do it. I'm just trying to see how much time. Do you have a hard stop at 6:30?
I did. It's 6:33 where I am.
Okay.
How much more you got?
I got 2 more pieces. One about Israel and Gaza, and then one about third-party candidates.
Well, you can continue after me.
Okay. So what do you have going on this evening?
Yeah, so I'm covering 4 or 5 news stories, and we're gonna discuss 3 more ballot measures. So I'm almost done with the ballot initiatives for 2024.
Nice. Okay, so you'll be at 8 p.m. Eastern, correct?
Yeah.
All right. By the way, everybody, Sabby's channel is linked in the description below, so you guys can go straight there after we're finished here. So thank you very much, Sabs. My apologies for going a little bit over time for you, but I just want to make sure we got a lot of this in.
All right, JB. Bye.
All right. Deuces, Bruces. Okay, so we're going to get into this because I want to make sure I get as many of these points as possible. We're going to be going into the Israel and Gaza portion of this right now. So I would like to get into that because Kamala really just, she steps in quite a bit. Let me see. All right. All right, so let me share the screen, and then once we do this, get into it. Oh, Lord. The way she's looking at Anderson right now. Like, please don't ask me something hard. Please don't ask me something difficult. Oh, my goodness.
This is Annalise Keene. She's from Philadelphia. She works as a fundraiser for Habitat for Humanity. She's registered with no party affiliation. She says she's a Democrat. She's leaning toward voting for you, but said she's yet to make her final decision in part because of the conflict in the Middle East. Annalise?
Thank you, and good evening, Madam Vice President.
Good evening.
My question is, as president, what would you do to ensure not another Palestinian dies due to bombs being funded by U.S. tax dollars?
So I will say, and I think this is to your point, far too many innocent Palestinian civilians have been killed. It's unconscionable. And we are now at a place where with Sinwar's death, I do believe we have an opportunity to end this war bring the hostages home, bring relief to the Palestinian people, and work toward a two-state solution where Israel and the Palestinians in equal measure have security, where the Palestinian people have dignity, self-determination, and the safety that they so rightly deserve.
So here's my issue regarding this statement here. You cannot destroy a belief in liberation. I'm going to repeat myself. You cannot destroy a belief in liberation. Just because they killed Yahya Sinwar doesn't mean that the Palestinian resistance fighters will stop. Their goal is liberation. Also, if they got rid of Sinwar, shouldn't the bombing stop? It won't, because Israel wants to exterminate all the Palestinians in the region anyway. Just like the war on terror didn't stop after Saddam Hussein's death, the goal is land and resources, not peace. Let's go and resume.
What do you say to voters who are thinking about supporting a third-party candidate or staying on the couch, not voting at all because of this issue?
Listen, I am not going to deny the strong feelings that people have. I don't know that anyone who has seen the images who would not have strong feelings about what has happened, much less those who have relatives who have died and been killed. And I know people and I've talked with people. So I appreciate that. But I also do know that for many people who care about this issue, they also care about bringing down the price of groceries.
That is nasty work. Nasty work. We're concerned about a genocide going on, an extermination going on between people in Palestine at the hands of Israel. And you are like, well, you know, people are also concerned about their groceries. People were also concerned about their groceries during World War II as well. I mean, can you actually, you know what? Maybe I'm reading too deeply into this, but you know what Kamala Harris is telling us, in my view? Yeah, it's bad what they're doing. There are thousands that Israel killed and all this other stuff, but you got to vote for me because I'm also going to help bring your grocery. I may help bring your grocery bills down. So you just got to, you know, kind of do this to the people who are dying. You kind of got to block the images in your head. You know, just accept that they're over there and they're going to die, but you'll get lower prices for your groceries. Just accept the horrors that they're going over there so that you can have more benefits here. Let me ask you. You're hungry. You're starving. And just to let you guys know, trigger warning, I'm going to get very real for a second. You're hungry, you're a kid, you're hungry and you're starving, and there's no food in the house. And you're in the house and you find an adult physically abusing your younger sibling in the house, and that adult offers your younger sibling, it offers you food to shh, don't say anything. And then you're faced with a question. Do you either stop that person from doing the abuse or take the food because you're starving? Also, there is a slimmer chance knowing that there may be some apples, some peaches and stuff like that in a place where it may be a little bit harder to reach, but you can also go there. And you can also got the phone there to call somebody for help against your sibling. So you can act the adult for your sibling. Which one are you going to take? It's like Kamala is telling you to shh, just take the crumbs that I give you and allow this atrocity to keep happening to other people. And then I'll keep giving you the crumbs in order for you to not starve. That's what it feels like. It's like, do I help myself while allowing someone to suffer so that I can help myself? It's so morally reprehensible that to me, I look at people like her and Donald Trump as it's just, she and Donald Trump are some of the worst human beings I've ever seen in my life.
They also care about our democracy and not having a president of the United States who admires dictators and is a fascist. They also care about the fact that we need practical, common sense solutions from a leader who is willing to work across the aisle on behalf of the American people and not themselves. They want a president who cares about a fundamental freedom to make decisions about your own body. Understand?
Wait, hang on. Would working across the aisle also mean working with people who support Trump? Is that working across the aisle as well? What's the point of having an opposition party if you're going to be constantly coalescing with them? Isn't the point of opposing somebody to oppose them? It just...
Understanding that we're not trying to change anyone's belief, but let's not have the government telling women what to do with their body.
I want you to meet Beth Sandberg. She's a realtor, a mom of 4 from Ballackinwood, Pennsylvania. She's a registered Democrat, says she's undecided because of concerns about anti-Semitism. Beth?
Hi, thank you for being here.
Thank you,
Thank
Beth.
you for remembering we need to bring the hostages home.
Of course.
The rise of anti-Semitism and violence from anti-Semitism has risen greatly on college campuses and on our city streets in the last year. How would you combat this growing trend and protect our young adults?
Thank you, Beth. You are right, and I will say that we have seen a rise in anti-Semitism. It is something that we have to be honest about and we have to deal with. As Attorney General, I actually published a hate crimes report on a regular basis, and anti-Semitism was among the highest forms of hate. And
let me ask you this, right? There probably is a rise in anti-Semitism. I'm not going to deny it. But it's funny how they always talk about the rise of anti-Semitism, but they never talk about the rise in Islamophobia. While we're talking about it, they also never talk about the rise of anti-Blackness. Where's the anti-Black hate crime bill? Where is it? It's always, and then on top of it, they always talk about anti-Semitism as in because they always talk about anti-Semitism and try to conflate it with anti-Zionism. Anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are not the same thing. Zionism is a political ideology. Judaism is a religion, for the most part. It can also be somewhat of an ethnicity, but some people are arguing, about that, especially within the Jewish community. But we never talk about how Arabs are also Semites. Everybody always talks about anti-Semitism, but not when it comes to Arabs, even though Arabs are Semites. So yes, I have seen a rise in anti-Semitism, especially to Arabs. If we're going to talk about real anti-Semitism, it's not just to Jewish people, it's also to Arabs, because Arabs are Semites. And go cry to your mama about what is a Semite or not. Go ahead, go cry to your mama as you Google what is a Semite, and then it shows you people who speak Hebrew, Aramaic, Arabic, and Hebrew. So the thing is like we see a rise, but also the question is, whose fault is that? Is it the fault of the people who are occupied that are resisting their occupation, or is it the fault of the occupier that they're actually occupying other people and displacing them and causing them to die by bombing their refugee camps, churches, and hospitals? Which one is it? Are we going to talk about the 3 young men that were in Burlington, Vermont, that were actually shot at? One of them is now paralyzed for the rest of his life. Are we going to talk about the little 6-year-old boy in Chicago that was stabbed 26 times because he was Palestinian? Are we going to be talking about things like that? Because if we're going to talk about anti-Semitism, we need to talk about anti-Semitism towards Arabs as well. I'm not saying don't talk about anti-Semitism towards Jewish people, because it definitely does happen. But I'm talking about add in other Semites into the conversation. And then while you're trying to be fair, let's be fair to the Black people who experience anti-Blackness. And also that Islamophobia also applies to Black Muslims. Trust me, I know. My grandfather was a Muslim. So when people talk about, oh my goodness, the anti-Semitism, yes, highlight it, but also add in all Semites together. And we're going to talk about phobias when it comes to religion. Let's talk about Islamophobia. Let's talk about them too, because I think that's fair. Because you don't know how much Islamophobia that a lot of Muslims had to endure after 9/11. And now it's in an uptick since October 7th now, because all these people, especially the Democrats, suddenly have this Islamophobic type of view towards anybody that's Muslim. Oh my God, you're gay, they'll throw you off a roof. Meanwhile, I'm friends with Muslims. And yes, they know I'm gay and the day is long, and they don't care. So this is the crazy part. It gets on my damn nerves when people talk about stuff like this, and then they blanket a whole group of people with a broad brush. It doesn't make any damn sense. And yet they don't like it when other people do it to them.
In our country, and this was before October 7th. And we know what we've seen since. Part of what we've got to do is talk with people so that they understand what are the tropes, what are the roots of what we are seeing, so that we can actually have people be more understanding. We need to have laws in place that make those who would commit crimes on behalf of anti-Semitism and hate, that they pay a serious consequence. We need to have.
And again, I'm all fine for that, but you also need to include Arabs as Semites, because they are the textbook definition of a Semite. So are you going to include them too? And then also, Arabs are really anybody that speaks the language, a Semitic language. So what about Black Arabs? And now are we going to do a black hate crime bill? My God.
Have the deterrent so that doesn't happen. We need to ensure that college students are safe in their school and feel safe to be able to go to class. But
what about the ones that were actually in encampments, that were actually trying to use their First Amendment right in order to speak out against what was going on in Gaza? What about their rights? Because they were getting their heads bashed in by police. And by the way, none of the students that you say that were under threat weren't actually under any threat. They weren't physically threatening them. They weren't accosting them. They weren't harming them. They were marching, and then the Zionist students that didn't like it, they were sitting there with their Starbucks in hand going, oh my God, they want us dead, even though they ain't paying them no damn mind. Gracious. Kamala Harris is just peddling white supremacy, I tell you.
But I'm going to tell you what doesn't help. Again, I invite you to listen and go online to listen.
Oh, shut it. Let me move on to the next one. Let me go to this for 26. And this will be the last point that I point on.
Several times we've heard the reports for years.
Do you believe Donald Trump is anti-Semitic?
I believe Donald Trump is a danger to the well-being and security of America.
He is.
She won't say that he is because she knows that he isn't. But she will say that he's a danger. Right? Continue.
Said that he's casting himself as a protector of Israel. Do you believe you would be more pro-Israel than Donald Trump?
I believe that Donald Trump is dangerous. I believe that when you have a president of the United States who has said to his generals who work for him because he is commander in chief, these conversations, I assume many of them took place in the Oval Office. And if the president of the United States, the commander in chief, is saying to his generals, in essence, why can't you be more like Hitler's generals, Anderson? Come on.
That wasn't the question that he asked. He asked if Donald Trump is more loyal to Israel than she is. She couldn't even answer the question. No, I'm more loyal to another country. No, I'm more loyal to another country. I have more loyalty and more allegiance to a foreign government than he does. Nobody loves Israel more than me. I love Israel the most. This is Kamala Harris and Donald Trump kissing Netanyahu's ring. America first. America first. Oh my goodness. Can you believe it? I think I have this last piece here that I want to go to. I'm skipping part 5 because part 5 is really just Kamala, talking about her love of, I'm sorry, not her love, but her experience in regards to Joe Biden dropping out and her meeting the moment. So that's why I'm skipping part 5 for the most part. And plus, I got to get going. Anyways, but we'll get to part 6 and then we'll head on out after. We'll do the Patreon shout out and super chats and then we'll head on out. Make sure. Okay. All right. So let me share the screen. Sorry, guys. This is okay.
And we are back with Vice President Kamala Harris. I want you to meet Rob McPherson. He's the Chief Marketing Officer for a local organization. He's registered Republican from Media, Pennsylvania, who told us he's leaning towards voting for you, but has concerns about what he calls shifts in your policy positions. Rob?
Thank you. Thank you for being here, Vice President Harris. So welcome to Delco.
Thank you.
Here in Delco, we pride ourselves on being authentic.
Yeah.
And much of what we have much of what you've been saying with regard to issues like law and order and fracking reflect a more centrist view than what people are used to hearing from Kamala Harris, leaving some voters to wonder about the authenticity of your current, more moderate positions. Can you talk a little bit about how your positions have shifted and why?
Sure, and thank you. So first of all, on fracking, I've been very clear. We kind of dispensed with this in 2020. I am not going to ban fracking. I did not as vice president. In fact, as vice president, I cast the tie-breaking vote that now has opened up more fracking leases. My value on the issue of what we need to do to invest in a clean energy economy and a clean energy future has not changed.
Okay, so y'all know where I'm going with this, don't you? Let's take a look at what Kamala Harris actually said, because I think that's important. This is from 5 years ago. Let's take a listen.
There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yes, and starting with what we can do on day one around public lands, right? And then there has to be legislation. But yes, and this is something I've taken on in California. I have a history of working on this issue. And to your point, we have to just acknowledge that the residual impact of fracking is enormous in terms of the impact on the health and safety of communities. Yeah, so thank you.
So would you ban offshore drilling?
Yes, and I've, again, worked on that. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. There's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. So yeah.
Did you get it? Did you get it? My. You sure look horrible tonight. All right. So, shall we continue?
But frankly, I now have the experience and perspective of having been vice president for almost 4 years. I've traveled the country. I know that we can invest in a clean energy economy and still not ban fracking and still work toward what we need to do to create more jobs and create US-based jobs in a way that will be globally competitive. On the issue of law and order, as you mentioned, I think there's just a whole lot of misinformation, to be honest with you. I have personally prosecuted very serious crime. It's how I started my career. I spent most of my career as a prosecutor, not in Washington, D.C. And as my first priority had and remains as a first priority to me, the safety of the American people. So that has not changed. And sadly, I think that there's a bit of misinformation, if not more than a bit. But I'm glad that you raised the subject so that I can address it. But
misinformation? Did you guys see what I just showed you? She said it with her own mouth and her own words. Remember, she's speaking. Take it away, Anderson.
Just if you don't mind, just let me just finish. Because I think the spirit of your question is really important, and I'm glad you raised it. Our country deserves to have a president of the United States who is not afraid of good ideas and does not stand on pride. If a perspective needs to be informed by different points of view to build consensus and to have a common sense approach. I'm never going to shy away from good ideas. And I'm not going to feel the need to have pride associate with a position that I've taken when the important thing is to build consensus to fix problems. I believe in fixing problems. I love fixing problems. And so I pledge to you to be a president who not only works for all Americans, but works on getting stuff done. And that means compromise. And it doesn't mean compromising your values or your principles, but it does mean working to get stuff done. And
she did compromise on her values, though. What's she talking about? She flip-flopped on fracking, knowing the science behind it, how it actually ruins our water table and also causes more fossil fuels in order to create more CO2 within our atmosphere, thus creating a more warmer climate, heating up our solar ice caps, causing more water to actually go into our oceans. And then our oceans also end up becoming more warmer, causing for more violent and extreme and more frequent weather events like hurricanes, like we had earlier with Hurricane Helene and Hurricane Milton. The science is pretty much set on that. And yet, for some reason, people like Kamala Harris seem to be going the opposite direction.
I will do that.
Hang on.
Just to be clear, though, what he's referring to, and you point out to when you're running for vice president in 2020, you were not talking about banning fracking, but
no, Anderson, I pledged that I would not ban fracking.
Right, I know. You said you would not ban fracking.
Correct.
You had said in the 2019 town hall, there's no question I'm in favor of banning fracking. In 2017, you talked about Medicare for all. You talked about 2019, you raised a hand in debate about if border crossings should be decriminalized. Are all of those issues, which those are not your positions now, are all those issues that you're saying through consensus and getting stuff done you have evolved on?
Well, no, let's take, for example, the issue of Medicare. My point has always been that access to healthcare should not just be a privilege of those who can afford it. It should be a right for all people. So that is why.
If it's a right for all people, then why are you continuing to allow a paywall between people and healthcare? If it's a right, then it needs to be a right. And we could actually make it into a true right for all people, just like we make education a right. You literally can get, you literally are entitled to a public education paid for with, through free at the point of service. And it's all, money's all pulled together in order for people to be able to get an education. And the only reason why education is not truly as good as it should be is because it's underfunded in many areas, because, well, it's funded through property taxes. But we could actually make it, a lot better. The same thing with healthcare. We can actually get ourselves a truly nationalized healthcare system in order to make sure that everybody has a baseline of healthcare. And by baseline, I'm not talking about everybody, some people having a small baseline and then others have better. I'm saying that everybody has the same high standard of care, no matter who you are. It seems that Kamala Harris does not actually believe in that, because if she did, then she wouldn't have swayed on her belief for Medicare for all. She wouldn't have swayed on that at all. But instead she did. Why? Because she's getting money from the big pharma. She's getting money from billionaires. And so therefore, she really does not care about healthcare for all, because if she did, she wouldn't have wavered on that. It's the same thing with our environment. People talk about, oh, we got to vote for Kamala Harris so that we don't get Donald Trump. But Kamala Harris is literally doing a lot of the same things that Donald Trump would be doing.
I have worked on doing what we have done to, one, allow Medicare to negotiate against the big pharmaceutical companies to bring down the cost of prescription medication. We've achieved that in terms of capping the cost of insulin for seniors at $35 a month, capping the cost of annual prescriptions at $2,000 a year for seniors. But my plan moving forward, based on that very principle that I've always had, is as president, to have that cap be for everyone and not just for our seniors. The work that I have done that has been about recognizing the importance of dealing with border security, that has never changed. As I said, I have prosecuted transnational criminal organizations. That I did for years before I ever ran in 2019.
I mean, you did raise your hand saying in a debate when asked if border crossing should be decriminalized, but obviously that is not your position.
I never intended, nor will I ever allow America to have a border that is not secure. I believe we need to deal with illegal immigration. There needs to be consequences, which is why part of my plan that I have outlined, and again, please go to kamalaharris.com. Sorry to throw.
No, y'all don't need to go there. Look, here's the thing. She's an empty suit and she goes to whatever's convenient. And you guys should know that by now, from what we've been talking about for the last, 2 hours now. So just to let you guys know, as far as this entire kerfuffle that Kamala Harris has been involved in, I want you guys to go into the poll and grade Kamala Harris. I have a feeling I know exactly how it's going to turn out. But the thing is that people like Kamala Harris think that you are uninformed. She thinks that you are idiots and that you don't do your research. And in fact, the very fact that you're actually watching this right now shows that you are actually informed. Or if you didn't know, now you know and you are informed. The problem is with people like Kamala Harris is she wants you to vote based on vibes. This is why she kept on bringing up Donald Trump. Because she's like, he has bad vibes. I have good vibes. Vote for me. And the thing is, we're like, no, we don't want to vote based on vibes anymore. We want to vote based on policy because the policy is actually what affects our very lives. Vibes don't do a damn thing for me and vibes don't do a damn thing for you. So what we need to do is actually focus on the policies. And the thing is that between Donald Trump's policy and Kamala Harris's policy, when you look at them, they're very much mirrored the exact same thing. A vote for Harris is a vote for Trump, and a vote for Trump is a vote for Harris. And the thing is like, how do we know this? Look at the policies, and you'll see that there's less and less of a gulf between them. They are basically similar as far as their policy goes when it comes to immigration, with a policy when it goes to foreign policy, their policies when it comes to the environment. Really, for the most part, Kamala Harris is just a Donald Trump that's for gay people. That's really all she is. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make any sense. And so, and they're not even really for gay people. It's just, they just want to dangle the rainbow flag in front of you and say, oh, love is love. When in reality, they won't actually do any tangibles for us, for those of us who are LGBTQ either. So, that's one of the things, I think. Now, just to let you guys know, there are many different third-party choices out there, right? You don't have to go with third party. And even if you don't feel like voting, if you don't want to vote for any of them, you can vote for the ballot measures, the ballot initiatives out there. Sabby will be covering some tonight on her channel. Go ahead and give her a look. But also another thing is, even if you don't want to vote at all, you can still do organizing in order to build dual power, in order to reach and build community so that we can actually get rid of this system altogether. I think that's the number one thing that we should be doing, is doing the organizing work and building dual power out of everything. Because the thing is like, whenever you look at people like Kamala Harris, whenever you look at people like Donald Trump, they're always trying to put Band-Aids on a gaping wound. And those Band-Aids that they're trying to put on a gaping wound aren't even really Band-Aids. They're just strips of paper that they say that are Band-Aids. And it does not work for any damn body. And the issue is that we need a completely new system. They keep trying to keep you within the system so that they can keep the wealth at the top. No, this is why we talk about organizing on the ground. This is why we talk about building mutual aid and building dual power, because the thing is that the power lies in your hands. And the issue is that one of the reasons why I talk about third parties is I want you guys to see their platform, and I want you guys to try to implement that on the ground outside of electoral politics so that you can actually start building that yourself. Because ultimately, we save us. There ain't no particular person coming to save you. Even the people who we may, have a support for. Because ultimately what we need to do is, if you want on a random Tuesday, on a Tuesday in November, go bubble in a name that, is outside of duopoly, please, yes, go ahead, do that. But the biggest thing you can do is start organizing on the ground with the people around you and make sure that you actually start building community and organize. That's the primary thing that you need to do. I said everything that I needed to say. Let's get into the chat because I want to make sure I get to that so that everybody gets their voice heard as well. And did you take the poll? Go ahead and take the poll because I think that's important. The polls are important. Polls, let me know. The polls. Hang on. Let's go up here. All right. So thank you very much for the tip on Rockfin. Roger Meadows, he says, Trump couldn't be bothered to show up to the town hall like you couldn't bother to show up to all the Al Smith dinner. Regarding not having an open convention, I say why? Debbie Wasserman Schultz already told us they pick who they want regardless of what their voters want. This was cutting out the middleman and practicing what they've always practiced. They thought to do it out in the open. Voters vote blue, no matter who, they're loyal. Let's not forget a January 22nd document leaked from Justice Alito's office on how Supreme Court of the United States would rule on the Dobbs decision. They knew ahead of time and did nothing. 6 months later, Roe v. Wade overturned and still did nothing despite holding both chambers of Congress and White House. Yet still did nothing. Instead, they ran on doing something they could have already done. The sandwich generation were called Gen X. Man, everyone forget. Oh, Roger, I'm sorry. And thank you very much for the tip on Rockman, Laura. Appreciate it very, very much. Let me go to the super chats. Thank you very much. Christian says, yo, I'm here for today. Let's kick Kamala back out today. By the way, you two look beautiful. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Zoe says, did you see the video of Harris refusing to answer whether gender affirming care should be protected? No, I didn't, but it doesn't surprise me. And the thing is, it's like gender affirming care, that would be covered. If you're talking about medical gender affirming care, then that would be covered under a nationalized healthcare system or even a Medicare for all system. And the thing is like people who are trans, they shouldn't have to crowdfund for their gender affirming care and go into debt for it. That doesn't make any sense because that's healthcare too. And the same thing as, care for reproductive rights and things like that. That's just crazy to me. It's like it's gender affirming care. I mean, they have the same type of gender affirming care in Cuba, yet they don't have to pay out of pocket for it in Cuba. And go ahead and look it up. They've actually been doing gender reassignment surgeries in Cuba since the early 2000s. And the people who are trans, they don't have to pay for that because they have healthcare that is free at the point of service in Cuba. And so, yes, the thing is that we could do the same thing here. Why are we allowing Cuba to be further more progressive than us? It's weird. Roger Meadows says he only lost in North Carolina in 2012. He held on to Florida. Yeah, thank you very much for that, Roger. Radical Education says running on tax cuts is wild. Yeah. The thing is, it's like, how good is tax cuts for those of us who are lower income? What does tax cuts do for people like me? You know what I'm saying? And then why aren't you, number one, raising the minimum wage to a living wage somewhere north of $25 an hour? And why aren't you raising the benefit amount of people who receive Social Security, disability, retirement, and SSI? Janice Anderson says, off subject, but check in your state to find out if there's a homestead program. In New Jersey, own or rent, you can receive a rebate check one time per year. Oh, I didn't know that. Thank you very much for that, Janice. Appreciate the information. Just checking to see if I have any more super chats. I am very late and I need to get going. But I thank you guys for being in here for this conversation. And whoever's spamming the chat in Rumble, I'm not reading that out loud. Let me see. Turt Ferguson says the only violence I've seen during these protests has been done by the pro-Israeli side. Let me see. Come on. Wait. Why isn't this? Okay. Let me see. Bad Wolf says Kamala don't repeat. All right, so let me check on. Let me check on the poll, just so that we can see the poll results, because I don't want to miss those. So that's going to be interesting. Why is my internet acting slow? Jeez. It's probably because everybody's on right now. Probably would help if I took. I am connected to the internet. What are you talking about? Okay. All right. So let me enlarge this. Okay. And let me share the screen. Sorry, guys. Had to get that. All right. So as we expected, out of 394 votes says, what letter grade you give Vice President Harris for this town hall? 2% said A, 1% said B, 8% said C, and 90% said F. Well, that gives it to you, folks. We all see. And the thing is that this is why I say, if you're going to vote, go third party. Full disclosure, I am co-press director for the Jill Stein 2024 campaign. Just to let you guys know, of course, if you guys want a recommendation for me, I say Jill Stein, but there's also Claudia De La Cruz, Dr. Cornel West, Chase Oliver, Jasmine Sherman, and there's a few others as well. Go ahead and make sure to read the policies and see what they would do for you first. Do not just go off of vibes, please, because people like them. And also make sure to vote on the ballot measures in your state, because those directly affect you at home. So with that being said, let me make sure that I get this ready, because JB got to get going. All right, everybody. Take care, everybody. Look, water your plants, water yourselves, leave the world better than you found it. Do all the things if you got them. And please make sure to stay away from duopoly. Stay away from either blueberry flavor fascism or strawberry flavor fascism. Always go for your green smoothies, okay? I love you guys for watching. Mwah, forehead kisses. I will see you guys later. Shout out to all the patrons. And yes, we actually updated the patron list. We're going to get going. Have a good one, everybody. You guys are wonderful. Deuces, Bruces.